15.
Welcome to 5 by 15. Delia Ephron is an enormously wonderful screenwriter, novelist of many books. She wrote the fantastic film, which I think probably lots of us have seen, called You've Got Mail. She's the sister of the late Nora Ephron, again, another very famous American female writer. Nora died of cancer. Delia's husband died, which is where the book opens. Delia herself carried many of the same genes as her sister. And the book opens on a tremendously dramatic note. And it's hard to know, well, the book is also a love story and it's very gripping. I am now going to talk to Delia for the next 15 minutes about this book. I'll try not to overrun the time, but I will just say about this book that all the way through it, in particular about 3/4 of the way through it, I kept thinking, oh my God, she's going to die. She's going to die. And then I'd go, no, she's not dead because she wrote this book and I've seen a picture of her. But it's that thrilling. And Delia, so can you tell us, you say this begins with the very sad occasion of the death of your long married husband, Jerry, and then pick us up from there. And welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. This book is called Left on 10th. I live on 10th Street in Greenwich Village in Manhattan, and Left on 10th is my way home. And the night that my late husband died, it's a very traumatic moment because I had done everything I could so he could die at home in his bed in our bedroom, and I had gotten all the papers. You need special forms in this country and everything. So they told me, put it on the refrigerator, and if he falls, just call up the fire department and they'll send they're called the EMTs, the emergency people that come over, and they'll just lift him up and put him back in bed. So he fell and I needed him put back in bed, and he was very sick. I knew he was within the last couple of nights of his life, and there were 5 EMTs showed up and they refused to do what I asked. They said, no, he's under the jurisdiction of the fire department. And I'm getting in this crazy night of Jerry on the floor and me shouting at the 5 EMTs. And then I noticed there were 2 policemen in the apartment, and I'm thinking, this is way too many people to be in an apartment in New York City. And, I just could not even believe it. I just wanted him lifted up and put back in bed. And it just went on. And finally, I just went, I just started crying. I started wailing and bawling and I've done everything to keep him at home. And well, they got nicer, and I to this day, I wonder if they needed to bully me to tears. But and even when I was crying, I was thinking, now, am I doing this because I know it's the only move left? But anyway, they did get nicer, and they called up the fire department doctor, and he said, oh, just put your husband back, just ask them to put your husband back in bed. And then they did, and then they left. And I was so wiped out. I think I have plans for how it could be, how his death could be. And I don't think death is ever interested in what your plans are, really. And I was so completely zonked from dealing with this that, I fell asleep for the first time, not in the room with him. And because I had a night nurse, and I came up at 3 a.m. and he was gone, and I just said it like, he's dead. It's just like, it was like they'd beaten me into bluntness, and I never cried again. It was like that whole night, it just sucked it all out of me. Anyway, this book takes you on a journey from that night through my year alone, and all sorts of very strange things that then happened. I mean, one of the reasons I wrote this story, which is about 4 years of my life when just about everything awful that could happen to me did happen to me, was that it was such an extraordinary story, and there was so much luck and confluence in it and serendipity that it made me wonder about things like miracles, and if luck wasn't just another word for miracle. And anyway, go on. What else do you want to know here?
So you talk about miracles. So the book has the start with Jerry's death. Then, in fact, the miracle happens, and then the kind of anti-miracle happens. So the first miracle is obviously the contact from Peter.
Yes, but you see, everything came out of the strangest thing. I decided I had to disconnect Jerry's landline after about 6 months. And then I got into a huge battle with our phone company, and they disconnected my internet by accident, and I couldn't get it back. So I was on the phone with them. I don't know if you have this in England, but the prompts were just endless, and I kept getting disconnected and having to call back and go through them all. So then I do what I did, which is I wrote a very funny piece about, being on hold with the phone company and missing Jerry. And it ran in the New York Times. And I must say, a lot of people in this country really hate their phone companies, because I got a lot of mail. And one of the letters was several months later, I got a letter from Peter. And he is Peter is a Jungian analyst, a doctor, psychiatrist, who lived in the Bay Area then, which is north of San Francisco. And it was just a very strange thing, because I had just been invited to speak at a conference of Jungians in Texas. And I thought to myself, what's a Jungian? I better meet one and find out. And lo and behold, one arrives in my email. And then the last trip he'd taken had been to Syracuse, which is a falling down place in Sicily. And that's the title of my last book. And not that many people go there. So, and most importantly, really, we had a date. We actually still can't agree on how many dates we had. We had at least 2 dates 54 years ago, which I do not remember. And 54 years before, and Nora had fixed us up, my older sister. So he came blessed by my sister. And it was really a pretty amazing thing, because I had dealt with so much loss, and I was so grief-stricken, and to be in love was to just suddenly feel kind of feelings that, I didn't even know they were there anymore. So it was like the sun was shining suddenly. It was so miraculous. And it came out of this fluky thing. And then, he flew east. We fell in love over emails. All the emails are in Left on 10th. They're all in there, because when I wrote the book, I looked at them, and it was really how our love story started. And I thought, well, I've fallen into my own romantic comedy. And then 4 months later, I got diagnosed with AML, which is a fierce leukemia. And so then the second half of then Peter proposed that weekend that I found out, and we got married in the hospital while I was having my first chemo treatments. And, part of what was kind of amazing about this also was that I got to have many new treatments that did not exist 5 years before. I just had this great, that's what I mean about confluence. There was a drug that was just coming onto the market called CPX-351 that put me into remission. It hadn't even been there 5 years before. And then I had a very special kind of, a year later when it came back, I had a very unique transplant, a haplocord transplant, which is 2 people, 2 donors. Because if you don't have a match, you can get a donation of a cord blood from a baby, which is very much more adaptable. But you need another donation at the same time, because that adult donation kind of keeps your body going while the little baby cord bloods go to your marrow and take root. So, I mean, the little stem cells. So I had all this amazing medicine, but what I really had was Peter by my side. And the journey was really terrible. I mean, it was a really traumatic journey. And my girlfriends, I had my friends, I call them my women warriors. They were there with me too. So when I decided to write the book, which was after I survived, which was, I'd been in the hospital 100 days and I had 6,000 pages of hospital records. After I survived, I didn't think I would write again. But after about a year, maybe even more, maybe almost 2, my writer's heart started beating. And I looked at that and I thought, this is an extraordinary story and you get to tell it. Mm. So I got to research it. I got to call up my girlfriends and I got to go through all the emails that Peter sent to people in the hospital that were so positive. I couldn't believe that he never said, God, this is hell, because it was, but he didn't. He just maintained this belief that we were going to get out. And so he's such a hero. Yeah. So the book has, it's such a, well, of course I dedicated the book to him, but he's really was a hero. He really did. It was love and medicine that saved me, but it was helpful to write the book. I was glad I had the story to tell.
Was it difficult writing something so personal?
No, that's something I do, and I know how to do it. And I knew that there was no writing this book unless you told the truth. And very weirdly, one of the hardest things to write was because it's also about friendship and dogs and all sorts of things that are happening along the way. And I lost my dog during the time when I was most vulnerable. And I could not admit that I wasn't with my dog, that I was on another side of the country from my dog. I had gone to California. And I was in remission at that moment, but very rocky, feeling rocky. I'm frightened a lot. And I just couldn't get on a plane. I just couldn't. I was just too scared and I couldn't write it. And finally, I just said, just tell the truth. Tell the truth. You weren't, it's so funny. I'm telling you everything about my, swearing at everyone in the hospital, tearing my clothes off, doing all sorts of things that my friends told me I did. And I write that with no trouble. I get to my dog. And I can't admit that I wasn't there. So I had to admit it.
I was very, very touched by the bit about the dog. I think I would have been equally unable to say that I wasn't there for the dog at the end, as you were. There are many, many astonishing medical things. I think the thing that absolutely tripped me up was when you wake up at some point and you discover you've got a whole new blood group. That was
that's the end. If you have a bone marrow transplant, I was type O blood when I started, and then realized after that I was type A, and I was so stunned. And Peter says that if you change, your marrow is what produces your blood, and that's what you're replacing. Okay, so it doesn't get more basic than that. It doesn't. And he thinks, well, he's a doctor, but he thinks that it's like a heart transplant. Yeah. It's just there's no visible organ like that, so people don't really give it that kind of credit, but he thinks the journey is as big.
I would absolutely agree, especially when you read it. So it's so fundamental, the blood that's been whizzing around your body all these years, and suddenly it's kind of joined another ship, and well, you're going just fine. So has it been completely amazing to be able to restart your whole life in your 70s?
Yeah, actually, the simple answer to that is yes. I live in the same, I'm never leaving Dead Street. I live in my paradise. I love Greenwich Village. I love the world that I live in. I love my building. It still feels like a Greenwich Village building. And with a lot of people in it who are designers or artists or curators, but not fancy, not really. And so it suits me. I mean, I found where I belong, which I think we should have found by that time. But it is kind of, it's very, look, it was scary. It was scary to start over. But I didn't mean to fall in love. It just happened. And I think being out there in life, that's what life is about. Unexpected, amazing things. You if it happens to you, don't run away from it. But I was scared, and I still am, because I lost someone I loved so deeply. And I know that one of us is going to lose the other. And that was hard for me. We really had to talk about it. Peter wasn't as frightened of it as me, but he's not as frightened as I am in general.
Well, he comes out of it as a truly great guy. And I think that you're both really lucky. And actually anyone who gets to read this, which has got love and hope, which you probably can't see inscribed into the cover. It's a fantastic read. I can't recommend it enough. I stayed up really, really, really late reading this book, as I say, egging Delia on. Well, okay. Very, very pleased to see that she has such beautiful hair, which anyone who now reads the book will understand. I'm so pleased that you took the time to join us. Thank you very much. And
thank you very much for having me.
We're just so pleased that you're well and writing again.
Thank you.
Please keep doing it. So thank you.